Good afternoon and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, is my co-host and the unfortunate recipient of me bouncing ideas off him all week, Jim Stamm. Jim, how you doing, brother?
Oh, someone's got to do it, Gary. So I will listen and tell you what I think sucks and not tell you what I think's good. That's all I can do. So,
well, it's certainly not going to be my poor wife, I'll tell you that. And then we're also joined by, and you can't see her, unfortunately, but we're joined by our good friend Graves, who, I mean, she's probably just now catching her breath from keeping up with Ben at the live show last week. And she went and tried to do her due diligence and buy new equipment to be an even more stellar podcast guest. And Dell has gotten in her way and prevented her camera from working. So, Graves, how are you doing?
I'm doing great today, guys. I'm happy to be here, and yeah, I've got some troubleshooting here to do on my end, and but for right now, you're just going to have a black screen. But let's talk baseball and get this thing rolling.
Well, Eddie's gonna take care of that. So you're just gonna be like this voice that Jim and I react to. It's kind of gonna be like,
okay,
yeah, it's gonna be like what Houdini did after his death and everything.
Some might even say a voice from the graves, even,
Whoa. Mind blown, Jim.
I'll be here all podcast.
So we have some rather obvious topics to tackle today. And I mean, the first one on the agenda, I think, is the ongoing Cba negotiations. They voted to communicate more regularly moving forward, which, I thought that was really hilarious. I mean, the players gave up one of their biggest requests, which was, kind of expected, I thought. I think that was a pipe dream to begin with. I can't help but feel like they really haven't moved the needle very much. The more I think about it, the less I think they've actually come together. So is talking enough progress, Jim? I mean, should we feel positive about this? Or did you see such a lack of movement that it's actually kind of taken you the other direction now?
I think talking is good. As long as you're talking, something can come of it. We've seen in the past where they just stop. I mean, and it is dead silence. And they're basically refusing to deal with each other. What it tells me is that any expectations that I had that something impactful was going to get done with these negotiations, just from where they started and then what they seem to be focused on, that has diminished greatly for me. And I wasn't already super hopeful about what they were going to get accomplished as far as the competitive balance or anything related to that in general. So to me, talking's good. I think that there's only a handful of things that they've got to make progress on, because I think that will satisfy both parties enough, and then they'll try to get together and get the season going. So,
yeah, I tend to agree with you, man. I mean, it feels like a punt, but I'll tell you what, it doesn't feel like a punt until I actually feel like they've moved on some of the super important things enough that they're going to actually come together. And I don't feel like they've done that yet.
No.
So when we talk about it not being super impactful, I'm going to hold out a little bit, reserve judgment, because until I start feeling like they're about to make a deal, I'm holding out hope that something goes nuclear, to be honest with you. Graves, what do you think? I feel like I've called it a punt enough that I think I'm tired of making the reference. What do you think?
Well, I'm encouraged that they're talking. When we waited the 42 days before the MLB actually made their first proposal, I said, I really hope the players don't take that long to counter, and they didn't. So they've met back-to-back days now. I'll take that as a positive sign.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see that. I still feel that they're so far apart on some bigger issues. Yes, the players conceded. There's been some concessions this week, but I think they're still so far apart, and there's still some bigger components that they're going to try to agree with. I don't see this happening anytime soon. I could actually see some delay to the season, and I've heard some talk about. Typically in April and May, you have a lot of rainouts, you have this, you have that. And if the owners missed out some games, then they wouldn't cry too much about it. So we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, I read something about that too, where the player or the owners probably wouldn't care about losing the early season games. And I'm not 100% sure that I'm on board with that.
Well, I'm not either. But as we saw in 2020, all they cared about was getting to the playoffs. And by golly, that's where they made their money, and everything was happy. And they did everything they could to get that World Series in and the playoffs in and name a champion. And so I think there could be some truth to it. And we're just going to have to wait and see what happens.
Let's put it this way. It won't be the driving force behind anything. I think that's just kind of seen as maybe some collateral damage, if anything. But I don't think that's going to be in my opinion, anything that's going to sway the negotiations one way or the other.
So what's the one thing that you think both sides have that they can give up and should give up that would really move this thing closer to being a deal? What's on the table that you think that's ridiculous? Stop asking for that. For me, it's the players asking for revenue sharing to be decreased and their tax threshold to be raised as much as they've asked, almost $35 million.
Yeah, the numbers that have been thrown out there seem pretty crazy at this point. I mean, obviously they're going to have to both sides are going to have to get a little bit more realistic with those numbers if anything's going to happen in that regard. But yeah, where they're at right now, there's a lot of work to be done.
I didn't have a problem with what the players suggested for the minimum salary tiers, though. I thought that was actually pretty reasonable. They only came up, but 100,000 or so. I thought that was doable. I think the owners should kind of bend on that a little bit.
I'll tell you what, guys. I think that this is tells you my expectations at this point. I think if the players can walk away with getting the younger players those raises that they want, and maybe getting a little bit of the arbitration for some of these younger players, some more money involved in that, I think they'd walk away and almost take it. I just see the players as really having some low expectations of what they're going to be get out of this in general, and they'll hold out for as much as they can, and then eventually they'll just accept it.
I think that's the way it's trending, and I think if they are going to play relatively close to on time, that's exactly what's going to happen. It's going to be an almost 100% player cave. The owners have made it pretty clear they're not giving up the years of control, and I think if that's not going to be a major sticking point, they have every shot of getting this game back on the field this year. If the players decided to make that a major point, I think that we might actually be in for a pretty long, dragged out battle. But all in all, I guess it's as encouraging as you want it to be. If you wanted a full-blown cap, it's probably pretty disappointing. But I don't think this was the cycle for that anyway. I do think it's the cycle for starting to lay the groundwork and starting to hear the owners chatter about it, which is reminiscent to what happened in other leagues. So on track for what I think is coming, just not sure when.
Yeah, and just to let everybody know, Gary has a great piece on that on Inside the Bucs Basement, and I forget what it was titled, but
10 months and 4 days.
Yeah, so just kind of breaking things down and comparing things. So if you missed that, I would really encourage people to go find it, because it's just an excellent piece, and I think it can kind of clarify some things on where things hopefully can go at some point in time.
Ugh. CBA it sucks because we have to talk about it. It's definitely something happening. But man, it gets really boring. Like, oh, these two guys sat in a room and they tossed some folders across the table and walked out, Like, there's nothing entertaining about that at all. So let's go ahead and end this segment now. And when we come back, let's talk about something at least a little more interesting than that. And we're back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. I already told you we had a couple topics that were kind of teed up for us that we kind of couldn't avoid, and the Hall of Fame is one of those subjects. David Ortiz made the Hall of Fame, and I guess we should talk about it a little bit. I feel like I'm being told most of what I grew up watching was cheating and, stuff I shouldn't look back on fondly. But Graves, I don't think anyone was surprised here with the result. How do you feel about the whole thing?
Well, first of all, congrats to David Ortiz. I mean, I think he is deserving, to be enshrined and to be elected. So congratulations to him. And I mean, he's pretty when it comes to playoff baseball, and I mean, he's clutch, and I'm not sure that there's too many better. So congratulations to him. The whole process to me, to say the least, is infuriating. I'm with you, Gary. I feel like my childhood was a lie. There's no denying that. PEDs have been a part of the game for as long as we can remember. I was reading an article today about, back in the early 1900s, they were eating horse testicles. And so you go from horse testicles to greenies to steroids. So
that's quite an escalation.
Yeah, this took a weird turn.
And so I had to throw that in there. But
no, that's great. Now I've got to go read about this.
Yeah. I'll share the link with you. So
definitely.
But,
here's hoping Chris doesn't see his Google history. But
yeah,
exactly. I'll send her a message too, so I tell her it's okay.
Disclaimer.
No, but you're right, Graves. I mean, there's been different kinds of cheating, and whenever you're in a competitive sport,
you're going to have that.
I think you're going to try to take every advantage you can. I mean, Jim, I remember.
Absolutely.
I remember Jaromir Jagr put too much curve on his stick.
Right. I think the thing that really eats at me more than anything is the character clause. We've that and it's yes, I know the Hall of Fame. It's a guideline, and this is what they want you to look at. But if we learned anything over the last 2 years about guidelines, people don't follow them very well. So I don't like the high moral standard of, we have to keep them out because they cheated. But nobody ever really cared until the numbers started being broken and the records were broken, and Barry Bonds went, and on his tear, and I guarantee you, every game of the 1998 season, I was living in Illinois at the time. I watched every one of those Sammy Sosa home runs, and I was glued to the TV,
right.
And I'm sure everybody else was too, because that was exciting.
Sports Center every night to see how McGuire and Sosa were.
Yep, going back and forth, and Sosa hit one, and then you had to find out if McGuire hit one and how close they were, and I mean that brought back fans from the strike of '94, and I hate that everybody ignored it, from the commissioner to the owners to the coaches to the players. They were all eating it up and they loved it. And now, because records were broken, it's like, okay, we can't let them in the Hall of Fame. And I think that eats at me more than anything, because it was such an important part of the game and an important part of the history, and they're not getting recognized for the great things that they did.
I agree with almost everything you said there. I think for me, it's mostly about public embarrassment. That congressional hearing had a hell of a lot more to do with why those players aren't in this the hall than anything.
And I know a lot of people like to point at Sammy, and him having his interpreter. But I tell you, if I was in a foreign, semi-foreign country, a country I wasn't familiar with, and I had to go in front of Congress, I'd probably want an interpreter too. I would be scared. I would be nervous. So I don't like that so many use that as an excuse. I
happen to think Sammy didn't have the numbers regardless.
Well, and that's up for discussion. I love Sammy, so but I can
lightly, Gary, tread lightly.
No, she's supposed to be a White Sox fan, so I'm not going to tread lightly when I'm smacking a Cub. I'm sorry. Now, Jim, I mean, you have opinions on this too, I'm sure. This is your childhood too. We're just about the same age, so.
It's crazy, even as I sit here and I'm listening, to you guys talk about it, it's so many things are racing through my mind as we talk about it. And it just goes from everything from my childhood and growing up watching baseball in the 80s and 90s, and those years that I truly appreciate, and then thinking about the cheating that's gone on then and before then, and then we've got the Astros stuff afterwards, and yet they're still seen as that's seen as okay, and nothing really happened. And baseball has just gotten themselves in such a weird, impossible place with this stuff. And I almost wonder if it would just be easier to just say, and look, maybe this creates problems too. I'm not even sure, but unless it comes down to something criminal, like criminal charges and things of that nature that could keep guys out because you don't want that to be part of, necessarily part of things. I mean, maybe that's where I would draw the line. Guys have been doing things forever in baseball.
Yeah, I guess I'm uncomfortable going back and relitigating the past. Like, for instance, Ty Cobb is supposedly just a huge bastard. There's just no other way to put it. Terrible person by all accounts. Plenty of records about that. Wonderful baseball player. Do I go back and take him out of the hall? No, because a lot of what he did back then was completely fine. There were still people doling at that point in our history.
Yeah.
The country has evolved. Things have changed. What was acceptable in society back then is not acceptable now. What's acceptable now will not be acceptable 100 years from now. I don't like going back through history and getting all upset because so-and-so didn't want black players. Well, none of them wanted black players way back in the 30s. I'm sorry. You can say whatever you want. I can't go back and change that. You can't go back and change the way history happened in this country. It sucks. But you can't go take that away.
Yeah.
To me, I can't look at the Baseball Hall of Fame and take it seriously when an entire decade of what I grew up with isn't in it.
Yeah.
The best of the best aren't in it.
I mean, the best of the best, not of even that generation, but of all time in certain cases.
Yeah, arguably. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, and, maybe Pittsburgh, maybe that's not the best place to have some of this conversation, because when we talk Hall of Fame, then it turns to Bonds, and then people in Pittsburgh clearly don't necessarily see that through the most unbiased of glasses.
I'm not 100% sure that Bonds is a Pittsburgh-only subject at this point. I think he's such a sore thumb situation where it's really impossible to ignore that he's not in.
No, but here's why I will continue saying what I'm saying, is because the other day I made the comment that I think Barry Bonds is the best hitter of my lifetime. That's just what I've seen. That's what I trust that that my eyes tell me, and looking at statistics and everything from his career to the beginning to the end. And my God, were my mentions all about Barry Bonds can't throw a ball from left field, and that he's a jerk and he's arrogant, and things of that nature, which had nothing to do with the fact of me talking about him being a good hitter. Right. So it was an avalanche of that more than anything. So I just wish maybe we could take a step back. But I mean, fans are fans, and I get that. But it overall, you're right. It on a national scale, there's plenty still to take issue with.
Sure. I guess it's a hard one for me. I kind of tend to back off of the subject altogether, because I'd rather just not care about it than get upset about it.
Sometimes it's easier not to care. I mean, it doesn't make any difference in us being fans and loving the game and kind of a choose your battle type of thing. The voters vote, and they vote how they see it, and that's pretty much all that we can do. And it's unfortunate.
And here's the other thing too, is and maybe this is where I deviate sometimes from a lot of the thinking out there, is sometimes with players, I just want to appreciate greatness.
Yeah.
Right.
And I get very enamored with that, because of how special some of these guys were. And I'm talking about in whatever sport you want to talk about. I mean, you want to talk about Barry Bonds?
No, but there's special and there's good. Like Ken Griffey Jr., special, just a special talent. I can appreciate that. Mike Trout is a special talent. Andrew McCutchen, and this may go over like a lead balloon in Pittsburgh, was a very good talent. I don't know how else to put that besides, there is a difference. You see it. It's palpable.
Right.
I want to be able to just look at that and appreciate it for what it is.
I get so infatuated with the greatness of certain type of transcendent players and the things that they're able to do. And, or guys that just had a special season that was just off the charts impressive. I'll even go and throw in a guy people never think of because he's not a Hall of Famer, but in baseball, there for a couple of years. How fun was it to watch Lenny Dykstra play baseball? Yeah. I mean, someone like that. And, he's
Ryan Howard.
Yeah. Dykstra was an absolute train wreck of a human being, and it appears that he still is. I think he's been to prison. I think but man, it's hard for me to sit and watch some of these guys when they're doing what some of the things they're doing and not just be blown away by the skill. So,
Yeah.
Even that couple months of Josh Bell and way back when, that was special. I mean, he was doing things that we were comparing him to, like, that period of time. They were comparing him to all-time greats, like Mickey Mantle type comparisons.
Well, he was producing like that for 2 months.
Exactly,
like,
that was special as special could be. Now, he's not a Hall of Famer, but again, you can sit back and appreciate that period of time, and that was unreal. Yeah,
I think it's almost a lost art. I mean, why can't we just appreciate that time and the good things, and instead of like Jim's tweet, why does everybody have to dump on about all the negative stuff? Just enjoy it for the simplicity.
Maybe that's the best way to end this, and that's kind of our Hall of Fame message from Pirates, the Pirates Fan Forum. I think is, hey, these people may not get in the Hall of Fame, they may not ever get in the Hall of Fame, but that should not stop you from looking back and appreciating what they did. Yep. You just don't have a bust to go stare at. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and if at the end of the day all you're going to do is, overlook what McCutchen did for those couple seasons when he was just, at his peak, but yet he left and you want to badmouth him, or you don't want to appreciate those couple months from Josh Bell that were literally historic, in historic comparison type situations. And then you just want to talk about how he stunk and we got nothing for him, which doesn't make sense, but that's what people do, right? He stinks, right, but we got nothing for him. So, it's just one of those things where, you've got to be able to look at some of that stuff and go, yeah, okay, there are some factors in there that may be things you could argue against and try to diminish it. But man, don't we watch sports for amazing performances and just historic type things? We get to see that, and then we all want to throw it in the trash. And I just don't want to live in that space.
Well, speaking of these amazing performances, the next subject we're going to talk about after this break is who our picks are to surprise next season for the Pirates, both good and bad. And I can't wait to hear what everybody has to pick from here. It's going to be a lot of fun. And welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum. And, it's only fitting that we should actually talk Pirates, huh? I mean, we talked CBA and Hall of Fame, and, neither of those are really Pirates topics. So I thought, heading into 2022, we already discussed we kind of feel pretty good that we're going to end up having a 2022. I want everyone to name and describe their picks to surprise this season, good and bad. And I'm going to get us started here. My pick for a good surprise, and I'm going to be really bold here, and I think I'm probably going to get laughed at.
Spicy take incoming.
It's not going to be Kevin Newman. I know that's what you wanted it to be, Jim. I'm going to say my good surprise is Mitch Keller. I think Mitch Keller is going to light it up this year.
R.I.P. your mentions, dude. Keep going.
I think Mitch Keller figures it out this year. I really do. I think he's not just somebody that we're going to get through the season with. I think by the end of this season, he's going to be somebody that you legitimately want them to use. You'll be excited to see him pitch. That's my take.
I like that.
Tell me. I'll put you on the spot, Gary, because this is what we do. Tell me why. Like, give me give me something that I can chew on a little bit that makes me feel a little more comfortable about that.
I am really encouraged by the work that he's been putting in this off season. And I don't just mean the few Instagram videos that I've seen. Been reading a lot of scouting things about him, adding velocity, pitching trainers talking about things they're working on with him, the placement, velocity, the movement on the off-speed stuff. Seems like things are really starting to come together and click for him. And I'm excited for what I think he can do this year. If he gets the opportunity, I think he's going to make the most of it this year. That's why.
Okay, yeah, I think, obviously, I think he's going to get that opportunity, and you know what another shame of it is for a guy like him is. I was thinking about this the other day. He's not who I picked, by the way, but I was thinking about Mitch Keller randomly the other day because I need better priorities in my life, I suppose. But
I'm just waiting for him to be somebody's pick to be the bad surprise this year.
Well, that our viewers will fill that in for you if we don't. So,
Yes.
But the real shame of it is he's been a really, for the most part, a really healthy guy.
Yeah.
He hasn't had any of the issues that we see with so many young guys coming up through that throw hard, and
it's true.
That's such a shame. Just from that standpoint, that if you would have told me he's coming up through, and given me his, kind of what his attributes were, and then told me, oh, by the way, he's going to be pretty remarkably healthy, I would have been shocked that we're at this point with him. So
I just think what he's fought through so far, I think he's kind of gone through the mental challenge aspect of becoming a starting pitcher. He's gone through the physical tolls letting him down. He's learned the lesson that the velocity on his fastball is not enough. You have to place it too. I think he's learned that you can't just whip a little curveball up there anymore. It's got to come in there with feeling and gusto and be placed. And I think we started to see some of that towards the end of last year, and I like how he's progressed into the offseason here. I just feel a different Mitch Keller is coming back next year, one that a lot of us aren't expecting to see.
Interesting.
So, your turn, sir. What do you got? You can go good or bad. You don't have to go in order here.
Well, no, but let's stay on the positive side of things. Here's somebody that, and I'll be honest, until really this week and me sitting down and taking a look at some things with him, tell you who I think could be if he gets the opportunity. I think Michael Chavis can do some things if you give him enough at bats. And I think there's enough looking at kind of what he's done. When he got his first chance with Boston, there was a lot to be encouraged about there. I mean, he was hitting. He was at the end of June. He had 14 homers and 44 RBI and was hitting 261 for the Red Sox. And I mean, a lot has happened since then, and I get that.
Right.
But, he's got the pedigree. He's a first-round draft pick. He has shown some ability in the past. If he's healthy, I would let the guy play. I'm more convinced that they should let him play now than I even was last year watching him, just because I think, my God, we give everybody else the opportunity that we wish they wouldn't keep time and time again, whether it's Anthony Alford or, whoever. I mean, let's not mention some of the other names that we had to endure. But so we can't give a guy that's 26 that has actually done it halfway through a major league season when he first got called up.
Don't you think he would have gotten more opportunity if he didn't get injured last year? I mean, I think they were trending towards giving him a lot of chances and at-bats. So.
Yeah. I'm not criticizing that part. I think they were planning on it. I hope that they stick with that. I hope that they give him enough. Even over a span of, I think he's got just over 600 plate appearances now. He's almost hit 30 home runs in his career. I mean, so this is a guy that I think, let's move him between second and first, find him enough at bats. Hey, maybe we have a DH to
right.
And let's let him play. He is not 28 or 29. He's still 26 and won't be 27 till the end of this year. I think if you play him, he gives me some confidence that you might be able to see a little something out of him. That's my guy.
I like the pick, man. I really do.
I do too. He offers a little some pop in his bat, and he's kind of a little scrappy. I think if he can stay healthy and like you said, have him play first, second, and some DH, and it could be
much needed pop.
A nice
you should be able to scrape together enough at bats for him around those two positions and a DH.
Yeah.
And he hit baseball at a time where he got hurt in that first season, and then we had shortened seasons and COVID and whatever. So like, if you look at somebody who probably got affected quite a bit by a lot of that stuff, he's never really found his footing since then.
Right.
And my goodness, if you want to find some footing, do it here. Do it in Pittsburgh and give him the opportunity. So, I mean, Graves, what do you think about him, or who do you have that you see?
Yeah, no, I actually love the Chavez pick. I had tossed his name around and when I was looking here as well. I settled on Bryce Wilson. I like his mound presence. I like his composure, and I think with his experience from such a young age, coming up through with Atlanta, I like that. I like what he does, and I think he's going to by the end of the season, he could be certainly one of our top couple of pitchers, and now that's not necessarily counting Contreras. I think he's going to have a good year as well, and obviously the floor is going to be much higher with him. But as far as this season goes, I'm excited to see what Wilson can do.
I like the Bryce Wilson pick because that's something that a lot of people don't really realize is he's been treated like a yo-yo.
Yeah.
His entire career. He's been up and down so many times.
Yeah, he has.
The Pirates are definitely going to give him a shot to stick. So, Graves, I mean, do you think that that's the kind of thing that he really takes and runs with this year? Is that where you're going with it?
Yeah, it is, because I do see them giving him an opportunity. He's going to go out there, hopefully every 5 days. He's going to stay healthy, and he's going to be able to give us those innings that we desperately need from our rotation. And he has been a bit of a yo-yo, and I think that can be a detriment to especially some guys. If you're looking at in the bullpen, they come up and pitch, and then they go back down because we need a fresh arm, and so I think starting pitching is going to be different, and I'm, like I said, I'm excited to see what he can do with some stability and with giving him an opportunity to go out there and pitch every 5 days.
I mean, I like our first round here because we've basically predicted a good 2 members of the starting rotation, and Jim's predicted basically a new starter emerging in the field a little bit here. So
yeah.
Not bad. I mean, I think it's healthy to expect certain players to take a step forward. Maybe surprised to take a step back isn't fair, because I think mostly everybody would have a hard time doing that on this team. And the thing is, like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I think Reynolds is going to get worse or anything. So it's difficult to predict somebody taking a step back. But I guess I could maybe change this more to who do we expect to wash out entirely this year? And I think there's definitely some candidates there. I think that we're probably looking at Cole Tucker. I think we're going to find out that the end of last year was an
aberration.
A mirage, basically. I think it was a positive step that is not going to be realized on this team. And I just think there's too much coming to play with him much longer. And it's sad because I honestly think the kid could truly be a terrific ambassador for the game of baseball and the Pirates in general. If he could do it, I just don't see it. I just don't see it in him. And that's the real shame of it. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope he comes out and just ropes balls all over the park. But my gut tells me he's my pick to probably wash out this year altogether.
I just don't want to lose his girlfriend. Can we just put that right out there right now? That would kind of bum me out. No Vanessa Hudgens would be a bummer.
I mean, I could care less, really. So, yeah, you can do all the Hollywood stuff yourself. I'm good with that. Graves, let's go with you. Who do you got for completely washing out this year? And you're normally a overly positive person, so this one might be difficult for you.
This one's a little tougher for me, and I'm still kind of scrolling through the list, and I've settled on Travis Swegerty.
Yeah, I you know what? I don't blame you for that. Part of me thinks, in the back of his mind, he's going to be kind of having that robo-ump in his mind, and he's going to be thinking about that, so he probably won't even see it. He probably won't even see it once.
Probably so, but yeah, to me this is the year that he's one of those guys that just has not been able to stay healthy, and he's got to prove himself healthy. He's got to come out to a quick start, and if that doesn't happen, then there's easily several guys that could surpass him on the list that could take his spot. So Swaggerty's the guy.
I feel bad for Travis Swegerty in certain ways. First, I should say I've never liked the pick. So it's not surprising to me that I'm not real high on him right now. I've never liked the bat. I never thought it was going to come along. He's been handed some really raw deals as far as COVID goes, and
right.
But
as we know, that's happened for a lot of guys.
Sure,
so.
It has.
Him in particular.
Yeah.
COVID took away, a season where he should have really been getting some good playing time, and he moved up anyway, and then catastrophic injury, and it's hard. And then, you get drafted as a college kid as it is, you're already battling some of that stigma that you're getting old.
You don't have as much time.
Right.
You just do not. Unless you just completely, you're doing so well that teams don't care how old you are.
That's why people don't think very often about the fact that Cole Tucker's been in this system for 7 years. Travis Swegerty just got drafted in 2018, so it's not like he's been around forever. It's not like he's died on the vine or anything.
Right.
But I agree with you. For instance, I've never liked the bat. I think defensively he could play. Mm-hmm. I'd throw him out in center field tomorrow and feel comfortable. But we saw Polanco struggle with that shoulder injury too. I don't 100% know how well he's going to come back this year. So that's a good call on your part, I think, if not relatively safe. But I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you because I know being negative at all is difficult for you. So
It is. Yes,
we're working on that, Graves. We'll get you a little more negative sometimes.
Look, she strategically is not on camera too. She didn't want. She didn't want to be able to trade. She wants to be like, Gary dubbed that in. I didn't have anything to do with it.
Funny how that works out.
So Jim, on to you, man. I mean, I know negative's not a problem, but
no, it's not. Let me throw a couple guys out there that. Let me just say that I'm worried about. That's
a good way to go.
If that's where I want to put it.
See, we could have been nice and done that for Graves too, and she would have had an easier time.
But we were not going to let her off the hook this time, Gary. But okay, so first guy that I'm worried about, because I do think this is such a pivotal year for him, is JT Brubaker. I am worried about JT Brubaker.
What are you worried about?
I am worried that last year he's going to come out and struggle. And the things that I thought maybe he was a little bit better at, once I started looking into some of his numbers, they weren't there like I thought they would be. I mean, just off the top of my head, I remember seeing, I think he pitched about 130 innings last year.
Mm-hmm.
I think he struck out 129 or 131 guys in those 130 innings. I would have guessed it would have been a little higher. Those things worry me for a league where you have to be able to get some guys out with the strikeouts. So that's
I mean, that's just not the type of pitcher he is, though. So
I know, but anymore, he's gonna have to improve on that a little bit, I think.
Right.
Obviously, he can't have the ball leaving the yard close to 30 times. I mean, and you know what? That part of it, I think you see sometimes. There's just a year where a guy gets bit by that. And for whatever reason, Garrett Cole it happened to. And trust me, I'm not confusing the two. I'm just saying it happens.
Right.
But so I worry about his viability as a starter. If he can't improve a little bit, and he's got to get the home runs down. I think he's got to get the strikeouts up a little bit. I think 1-for-1 anymore in Major League Baseball is the absolute bare minimum you can really do as a starter, unless you're maybe like a lefty that uses a lot of smoke and mirrors to get guys out. I just don't know if you can survive that way in Major League Baseball. So I think he would be my guy.
Well, I think what I like about JT is he is what he has been throughout his progression. He hasn't really changed the type of pitcher he is. I really didn't see a lot of the alarm bells last year with him until he started getting a little bit long in the tooth as far as like the number of innings that he was throwing last year. The ball started creeping up on him. The strikeout numbers really plummeted after he got past about the midway point of the season because he was doing pretty well with the strikeouts early on.
It got worse and worse as the year went on.
Yeah,
so
I think everything about him got worse and worse as the season went on.
Yeah, dealt with the dead arm, and that certainly didn't help things. And just as far as looking at age, I mean, JT Brubaker's 28 and Bryce Wilson's 24. I like the idea of going with the younger rotation and seeing what these guys can do. So I still like JT Brubaker, but he's definitely. It's going to be interesting to see how he bounces back from the end of last year.
And I think that's the big distinction too. Is I like JT Brubaker. I like how he competes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a matter of any of that. But he he's starting to get up there in age for a guy that you're looking for to see, is there anything really more there? Is there?
No, you're right.
Well,
he either does it this year or he doesn't.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, when you start pushing upper 20s and you're still trying to figure it out, boy, I would worry about that. Someone else, oddly enough, that I can see, I think you could make a great case that I could be super worried about and also feel like there's nowhere to go but up, is Kevin Newman. Here, I didn't want to let this segment go without Kevin Newman being in it, because he's such. But I know, I think you could make an argument either way. I probably would go on the assumption that he could improve a little at the plate. But my goodness, he was so bad last year. Does it worry me? Yeah.
I'll tell you what. I agree with you. I think he could actually get worse. You're right. But let's add one more category on here, because this is interesting. Number one target you see getting traded before this season starts.
Before the season.
Yeah, and I'll start. I think Kevin Newman is candidate number one to get moved before this season starts. I really do. I think there is legitimate interest from about 4 teams that I don't think is going to go away. And I think there are 4 teams that could live with him just being a defense-first player.
Exactly. They can absorb a whole lot more than what the Pirates can. So, yeah, get him for his defense, and whatever they get with his bat, they can they can look the other way on that.
Yeah, and I don't know why, I just have that gut feeling. And I think it was maybe I saw earlier today that, people were pounding rocks about Brian Reynolds getting traded again. But I think Kevin Newman is a realistic possibility to get traded, and I actually think it might really be a baseball trade. I think the Pirates have viable options that can play there, and let's be honest, like we were talking about last week, Jim. Even if Kevin Newman does catch fire this year and suddenly turns into a hitter, he kind of creates more of a problem than a benefit, right? Because they've got a lot of guys coming up here.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to walk through this in the sense of, okay, if they moved him before the season started, what would their plan be? It's short in the interim. Would they just let Cole Tucker be the shortstop?
Cruz?
Well, I just see, and I just don't think they'll know that until the spring happens.
I think you're assuming
fully.
I think you're putting a little bit too much on what they're going to supposedly see in a few weeks of spring. I think these teams make these decisions long before. Like, I don't think that jobs are won in spring like that. I just don't. I don't believe that. I never have. And the reason I say that is because if you're going to bring up a kid, or you're going to give a kid a shot to come up, he's not going to do anything in 3 weeks of spring that's going to change your mind one way or another. How many pitchers have we seen come out and look like Jordan Lyles a few years ago, right? He did absolutely nothing to win his job in the starting rotation in spring. He stunk out loud. They started him 5th because they signed him to be the 5th starter. It was going to happen one way or another. If Jose Quintana stinks this spring, he's still going to start. It's not going to matter. I think they do that a lot with a lot of these players. And if O'Neal Cruz stinks, Cole Tucker can play shortstop. They'll live with it. If they can get somebody for Kevin Newman.
They would definitely live with it. I think, though, that the only reason I put an O'Neal Cruz type situation in a little bit different of an area is simply because he's young, and you just don't know if it's ready yet. And what if he just looks completely the part and just is absolutely tearing the cover off the ball in spring training. There's an unknown factor with a guy like that with some of these older fellows we're talking about, whether it's Quintana or whoever, that you just don't have that big of a unknown factor with. Do I think it changes their plans massively? No. Ideally, I'd like to see Kevin Newman play well enough to get traded at the break, where maybe you could get a little more for him at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know that I guess I don't see his market value changing much one way or another. I mean, I guess if he was tearing the cover off the ball. But then, again, I think you'd be taking a fan base that's already really tired of trades and proving once again that all you got to do is play well to get traded on this team. And I don't know that I'd want to deal with it. Just trade him right now. Like, move it out of the way. Make room for what's coming. Be done with it. Youth movement. That's what I say. But anybody else that you've got, Graves, that you could see being traded here before the season starts?
The one guy that I can see, and before I answer, I just want to say happy birthday to Brian Reynolds. Today is his birthday.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yes, of course.
So, yeah.
Well, yesterday by the time this airs, but yes.
Exactly. So, very true. I'm leaning towards Cole Tucker being traded, actually.
Hear that, Craig?
I don't know if there's enough interest in Kevin Newman, but I could possibly see a little bit more interest in someone like Cole Tucker just because he can. He is shown to be able to play the outfield somewhat, and that might interest a team a little bit more to having that flexibility.
Maybe. I mean, Kevin Newman's played left field too. I mean, like I think that's pretty comparable. But I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, before the season, that's a tough one. I don't see any name just really sticking out to me. I mean, I know Chris Stratton has been a name mentioned before the lockout, but I don't see the big hurry to trade him either. So
yeah, I think look, they're still looking, if you believe Ben Sherrington, that they're still looking to add pitching.
Yeah.
So I think you can kind of lop that whole half of the roster off as far as the pitching goes. I think they want to keep as much of it as they can and sort through it and go from there and even add a piece. And yeah, so when you get onto the offensive side of things, it's tough to see anything that really makes a lot of sense at this point. Stratton is a guy, but I think if you've made it this far with him and it hadn't happened in the off-season, the true off-season,
right,
then I think he's there, and you wait to see what you could get for him maybe at the deadline. So
yeah.
But yeah, offensively, there's not a lot that I don't think that they're going to be able to do because of situations.
Yeah, I think that's why maybe that's why I land on Kevin Newman. But I do think that they have so many middle infielders and so many coming that it just stands to reason that they would want to move one of those former number one picks that maybe someone else can fix, and maybe you get a lottery ticket, and it's something that I think you can actually move for something better. Yeah,
you look for depth. That's where it is in the organization. We can argue whether it's good depth or not, but that is where there are more bodies that you can shuffle around.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, hey, interesting times coming up here, and I do believe we're going to have baseball. I think that is the one big takeaway from the CBA stuff is they're inching closer. They're giving up stuff already. That's a positive sign. A few weeks out from really needing to make progress. So I guess if nothing else, we're going to be actually talking about real baseball games at some point this year, and that's kind of exciting, right? We haven't done this show yet doing that, since we've been on the network. So good stuff there. But I think that should be about enough baseball talk for 1 week, everybody. We'll come back next week and do some more. So, everybody, how do you get a hold of yourselves here? Graves, I'll let you start.
All right. Well, I am Voice from the Graves. You can find me at KG_55 VFTG. Give me a follow on Twitter, and let's go Bucs.
Yeah, and Jim, how's everybody get a hold of you? I know you're all about the city.
Oh, yeah. It's at Jim Stamm 22 or for the city _412. And basically all Pittsburgh all the time. I do want to mention how good of a time we had at the North Shore Tavern.
Yeah.
Yes, we did.
We plugged it a bunch. We did our live show from there on the 22nd of January. And we got to meet a lot of people that we had never seen in person before.
Yep.
And hey, we hadn't even seen Graves before.
Exactly.
So you know what I mean. So that right there. But it was such a good time. I hope we can do it again. I mean, it's a great environment to sit down and talk some baseball with everyone. And not only did we get to meet people, fans of the show, we actually got to meet people's families. It was just cool. So
it was really cool, man.
I appreciate North Shore Tavern for letting us do it. Mike, the owner, more than gracious. And so it was fun.
Yeah, and I appreciate everybody who came out and made it out in the bitter cold to join us and have cold beers at North Shore Tavern. Definitely you. Thank you for everything you guys donated to let us give away DK Pittsburgh Sports. We appreciate that. I mean, people often think that we are like employed by them, but we're not. So like them giving us things to give away was really nice. So thank you. And North Shore Tavern, of course, wonderful place. My wife loves it so much I had to go back last night for her birthday with her parents. So we had a good time there again on Wednesday night. So good stuff. But without further ado, Ben, take it away.
Yes, your butt.